Thank you for taking out of your evening to attend our toileting workshop. So you may be here because you're considering toilet training your kiddo, or you're already going through toilet training and looking for some additional information. Whatever the case is, we are happy to share our knowledge of toilet training with you all. And so my name is Ivy. I'm an occupational therapist with the center, and I just recently started back in June with them. My co-host is also present here. I'll have her introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kelsey Popst. I've been with the center for about 9 months now, but been working with kids for many, many years. So excited to chat with you today.
So thank you, Kelsey. And so we will have about a 5-minute break towards the end. It's not towards the end, oh my gosh. 5-minute break in the middle of the presentation so that we can all have a potty break, because toilet talk might prompt us to go to the bathroom. And then if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. We'll get to them at that break point. And if we have any additional questions, we'll save them for the end. Alrighty, let's begin. So before we get started though, an important note is that we need to remember that, to consider any underlying medical conditions that might impact toilet training. So making sure that we check with our doctor or look into medical history that might make toilet training uncomfortable. So what that might be is an overactive bladder, a reduced bladder size, bladder infection, or even a case of or a history of constipation. So all these things can make toilet training uncomfortable and can be things that we need to consider when moving forward. Alrighty, so it's important to make sure that your bathroom and home are ready for toilet training. Our environments are made for adults. Nothing is unfortunately made in kid-sized things. And so what that might look like is having a ring reducer, which is that blue little ring on the toilet. What this does is to help allow your kiddo to sit properly on the toilet without having to hover, having a stool to support their legs, having fun soap so that they're engaged when they wash their hands, having another stool to be tall enough for the sink, and having lots and lots and lots and lots of underwear, as accidents are bound to happen. So don't forget, soon both you and your kiddo will be spending lots of time in the bathroom. And so it's important to make sure that our home and bathroom are ready for toilet training with those items in the previous slide, but also making sure that there's some fun things in the bathroom so that we can motivate our kiddo to spend that time in the bathroom. And so it could look like books, it could be small gadgets, maybe a few toys, all the sorts. And so how do we know if our kids are ready? How do we know that they're ready for toilet training? And so we're not going to talk about what age a child should start toilet training or what kind of stages, just because every child is different and parents know their kids best. So making that judgment themselves. And culturally, expectations for toilet training and independence also vary significantly. So here are some few general developmental signs of readiness that might suggest toilet training can take place, which are listed here on the slide. So one is where they show an awareness of having peed or pooped. So that might look like that they're touching themselves, or they are beginning to take off their pants because of that wetness. They stay dry for up to or greater than an hour and a half or 2 hours. This suggests that they're able to hold their bladder and their bowel movements. Some awareness for the routine and toileting. So that might look like being able to take off their pants, the flushing motion, or the toilet paper, engaging with the toilet paper and sitting on the toilet, which leads to our next point. Do they have that willingness to sit on the toilet? That is a foundational skill for toilet training. Do they have that emerging dressing skills? So are they pushing down their pants? Are they pulling them back up afterwards? And so children don't always need to show readiness skills. For example, some kiddos, they might not care that they are wet. And so looking for those really subtle signs of when that your kiddo might show that they are aware, and just really being hyperactive, really honing into what they are doing, because sometimes it's not always that obvious. And so what if they aren't quite ready yet? What can we do to get them ready? The first thing to do is collect data. And so what collecting data may look like is tracking how often they pee or poop, or how long they remain dry. This gives us information about when to bring our kiddos to the bathroom, or how long they can hold their bladder or bowels. And so this will help us understand when we should be bringing our kiddos to the bathroom and following their lead. And so if your child's not quite ready, we can practice and work towards getting them ready. So one idea is to have your kiddo in underwear first, and then a diaper under that underwear. And so what this does is it gives them the opportunity to feel that wetness right against their body. Whereas having a diaper, that just completely absorbs all the wetness, and then they basically just always feel dry. So they never really feel that wetness. And always remember to practice, practicing that routine, having them involved. And I think Kelsey will definitely go into that.
Okay, so you're probably here for a reason, and it's because toilet training is hard. We recognize that it's hard for parents and it's hard for the kids. It's probably harder for the parents though. So some ways to make it more enjoyable is to make it fun and motivating, because as adults, we don't do anything for free. It needs to be fun and worth it, or we're getting paid. And kids are the same. We need to find out what's the equivalent to their money. So maybe that looks like reading books together and playing with a new toy. Maybe it's candy and a treat. Find things that your kids love and make those special for toileting times. And then also remember to reward yourself throughout this process. Okay, so one way to make it easier for you and to motivate your child is to create a basket of those motivating toys. The basket can stay in the bathroom, so it's easy access. And we want these motivators to be things that keep your kids' attention, but don't make them overly excited. So that might be where our singing voices come in really handy. And then we also want some additional toys or ways to engage that can be used as positive reinforcement. So if you do a good thing, you get a good thing. And it's important to remember that this positive reinforcement needs to only be used for the bathroom routine or when they have success peeing or pooping on the toilet. This can be kind of tricky for some parents. They're like, oh, my kid only has like 1 or 2 favorite toys. That's going to be hard to keep something specific for toileting. So maybe they have a medium toy that they're kind of interested in. You can hide that away for a day up to a couple of days, long enough that your kid's going to want it, but not long enough that they're going to forget about it. And we can bring that out to reinforce all aspects of toileting. So if that's walking into the bathroom, yay, we get bubbles. If we're sitting on the toilet, yay, we get a Smartie. If we pee, maybe we get 10,000 Smarties. One other thing to consider with all of these pre-toileting readiness skills is that you don't need, oh, sorry, I am jumping ahead in my slides already. Okay, one thing that kids often find really reinforcing and fun is bath time or water play. And this can be tricky because after your child has a bowel movement and you need to clean them up, we put them in the bath. So we don't want to accidentally reinforce pooping in a diaper or in their pants, but we can still use bath time as a positive reinforcement. We just want to make sure that something else happens in between the pooping in the diaper and that bath time. Okay. So we think our kids are ready. We have our house set up for them. We have our motivators, our positive reinforcement ready, and we can build some more skills to practice before jumping right into that full toilet training. So exposing your child to the environment and the routine as much as possible. This can look like changing their diaper in the washroom instead of on the bed or on the floor. Showing them that the poop from their diaper can actually be flushed down the toilet. You can have them stand up while they're changing their diaper because this is vastly different experience than laying down on your back like you were when you're a baby. You can also start bringing their awareness to their bodies. So label and comment if they're wet or if they're dry, and positively reinforce when they are dry. So we can say, oh, yay, you're dry. Feel this. And then modeling using the toilet yourself. You can use video models or even social stories to talk about the different steps and what to expect. And there are tons of videos and songs out there. Some are much better than others, and some may drive you crazy faster than others. So explore your preferences with those. So the toileting routine as a whole has a ton of different elements to it. So kids have to be able to manage their clothes, actually sitting on the toilet, flushing the toilet, wiping, washing their hands. There's a ton of steps. And we can help them with each of those steps. And you'll hear OTs explaining prompting in everything that we do. So that can be using like physical hand over hand support, visuals, or just verbally describing the next steps for them. And we want to use the least amount of support necessary for your child to complete that action. So if they're able to pump the soap by themselves, let them pump the soap by themselves. If they need a little bit of a nudge to turn the water off fully, that's okay, we can give that to them. But we want to plan to fade out how much support we're doing so that they can increase their independence with each of those steps. Another way to support them with the more complex tasks, so for example, wiping, we can use chaining. And this is where you complete the majority of the steps of the task and your child completes just one. So with wiping, maybe we have your kiddo count the number of toilet paper squares, and then you rip, you wipe, flush, and complete the rest. And then gradually we can have them complete more and more of the steps. Throughout the routine, every time they participate, we're praising them. It's exciting. We need to make it worth it for them to participate. And then once again, practice being in underwear. Underwear feels very different than the diaper, as Ivy mentioned, and it can be a big adjustment for kiddos. So practice makes perfect. Start short and expand how long they're wearing their underwear for. And this is the part I tried to jump into earlier. We don't need our kiddos to be able to complete the entire routine before we start toilet training. So just consider what your ultimate goal is in the moment. Do you want your kid out of diapers, or do you want them to be independent and taking themselves to the washroom? If it's just being out of diapers, of course, we can provide a much higher level of support throughout the routine. If we want them to be independent, then they might not be quite ready yet, and we might have to work on some more of these skills. So the dressing and hand washing.
I do see a raised hand from Griffin. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that's my son's name.
Okay.
I just had a quick, excuse me, a quick question regarding practicing in underwear. Do you suggest, like, for how long in the day should we do that, do you think? Or what type of routine? What would that look like?
Yes. So consistency is always the best option. The more often you can do it, the faster kids will learn. At the same time, it's your own ability to keep up with that. If it's just underwear, we know there's going to be accidents and you might not want to be cleaning that up all the time. That's where layering the underwear first with the diaper over top can be very helpful. I don't really have a good answer for like a set amount of time or a length of time or like times of day. What fits with your routine and your kids' routine?
Agreed. And sometimes it might be a few hours a day. Usually we're looking at weekends when we're fully rested, or during those times when we have extra support throughout the week. So maybe in-laws are over, you have both parents at home. So making sure that you, just as Kelsey had said, your ability to carry through.
Is it okay if it varies like from the weekend to during the week? Like if it's not super consistent just because of the schedule difference?
I would say yes. Yeah, it's just that
Okay.
to be in that underwear is the key aspect. Essentially, it's to give that opportunity to feel that wetness, to feel what it's like to be in underwear and not have your diaper just absorb it all and keep you feeling comfy and dry all the time. Yeah. All right, Kelsey.
Okay, so our kids need to be able to relax, to pass urine and poop. So this picture actually has some good elements to it. So there's a footstool under her feet, so her feet aren't dangling. There is a ring reducer on the toilet, so she doesn't have to hold herself up, and she's not straining. She's also asleep and not in a very upright or leaned forward position. That would be ideal. So this picture shows me that she's supported and sturdy, but she may have been sitting on the toilet for a little too long. So we want our kids engaged, but maybe max out at 5 to 10 minutes sitting on the toilet. Okay, so some more ways to prepare. We need our kids to be able to sit on our toilet for a little bit of time at least. So we can get a baseline of how long they're willing to sit right from the get-go with no reinforcements, no motivators. For some kids, this might be 1 second, maybe it's a few minutes, maybe it's just like touching the toilet seat. Then we'll slowly build up how long they're sitting for. And we can use visual timers for this. That's a great way for your child to understand what the expectation is, and then feel proud and get excited when that timer goes off. So once again, we're going to positively reinforce and we're going to praise each time we make it to our little goal. And we'll set small incremental changes to our expectations so that we're growing and sitting for longer.
All right, phew, we've got the pre-skills set. We know what we're looking for. Now what? Sometimes at this point, your child may be holding their pee. You sit them on the toilet, but it seems like they just wait until you aren't looking to pee. Why? What do I gotta do? So here are some methods that, here are some evidence-based methods for toilet training with kiddos with autism. However, these are not the only way to go about toilet training. What we have listed is called time or trip training. That's such a tongue twister. And then also initiation training. So these are ways to support toilet training during the day and throughout their daytime. So that time/trip training is the idea that when your child is taken to the bathroom or the potty at regular intervals, they will void in the toilet. And so to set up this method, we need to figure out when they are normally voiding and the time between urinations. And so that's where our handy dandy data tracking sheets come in handy. Wow, I'm just repeating myself. So that data tracking sheet lets us know when they're going the most often, or just an approximation, and it gives us the idea of when to bring our child to the bathroom. And so during this type of training, looking at that data, we will consider maybe within 5 or 10 minutes of those time frames, we'll bring our kiddo to the bathroom and tell them it's time to pee. What you can do is also pair this routine with a visual if necessary, if that's what best supports your kiddos, and supporting your child to sit until they go, or sit them for 5 minutes and then off for 2 minutes. And so once they have peed a steady stream, we want to give them a immediate reinforcement. So right when they start trickling to having a full stream, we want to give that reinforcement right away, and then they are allowed off the toilet. So having that reinforcement in the bathroom will allow you to provide it immediately so that they understand, oh, it's because I peed in the toilet, I get the good things. And so some of you may be wondering, what if my kiddo just has a few drops in the toilet? Should I still reward them? And so we would suggest rewarding your kiddo for a full stream to ensure that they understand that the purpose of peeing in the toilet is to empty my bladder. If we reinforce a dribble, kiddos may develop the idea that if they just sit on the toilet for a few seconds and have a few drops in toilet, then they'll be given a reward. So in future toilet trips, they might just sit on the toilet, have a few drops, they might get a Smartie, and then that's it. And then they won't understand that, oh, I actually need to have a full pee in the toilet. And so self-initiation. So eventually your child's going to learn to pee in the toilet without an adult telling them. 2 methods we suggest to support that initiation is what we call 1, an intensive toilet training session, or 2, we fade back prompts if they are already time trained. So that's the previous method, which we call the time/trip training. And so fade back prompting looks like is if your child is showing signs of needing to pee. For example, they have a pee dance, rather than physically prompting them to the bathroom, like you walk into them to the bathroom, you may use a visual or a verbal prompt to encourage them to use the toilet. So one, that self-initiation, intensive toilet training to support that self-initiation. So during these intensive toilet trainings, your child will be taking in a high amount of fluids, and we need to consider, again, if there are any medical concerns or underlying medical issues that may make taking in high amounts of fluids uncomfortable for your kiddo. So again, that overactive bladder, a reduced bladder size, or bladder infections. All of these should be considered before conducting an intensive or even toilet training at all. And so during these intensives, you and your child will hang out in or near the bathroom, just so that the toilet is highly accessible, just in case an accident does happen. So if they begin to pee. So with that next point, if your child begins to pee off the toilet, quickly take them to the toilet to finish voiding. You get to, they get praised for them if they finish in the toilet. And if the child takes him or herself to the bathroom, that's when we positively reinforce them and give them a break from the bathroom. So if they bring themselves to the bathroom, that's when they get their big reward. They are getting access to their toys, they're getting access to the candy, the chocolate, whatever was decided to be that motivator. As we see success, we will slowly increase the time of the breaks. So for example, maybe they were going to the bathroom every 15 minutes. Now with success, we gradually increase, maybe that's 30 minutes, maybe that's an hour. And with more success, we also increase that distance from the bathroom. So first you're playing in the bathroom, now you're playing outside the bathroom. Now you're playing in the living room. Maybe you're playing on the other floors at some point, other floors of the home. And so this is the other method, which is prompt feeding. So during these times, we are again filling our kiddos with liquids, and we can still start in or near the bathroom, and then monitoring your child for a signal that they have to pee. So that might be the pee dance, that might be touching themselves. For some little boys, it might be a small wet spot on their underwear. During these times of toilet training, sometimes we recommend kiddos just wearing underwear instead of both underwear and pants, just so that we're able to see immediately if they are about to have an accident or needing to go to the bathroom. So when we do see those signals, we can provide a minimal prompt required to go to the bathroom. So that might look like nudging them towards the bathroom, or asking them an indirect question. What do we do when we need to pee? And so we want to fade our prompts as quickly as possible. So as they gain success with a higher level of support, we pull back that support. So first it was physically bringing them to the maybe the door of the bathroom. Now it's maybe walking them to the hallway outside the bathroom. Maybe then it's we point to the bathroom. And then maybe it's we show them a visual. And so reinforcing them for voiding on the toilet as always. And so wet, dry checks. So teaching your child to pee in the toilet doesn't always mean that they will stop having accidents. After all, you've taught them to pee in the toilet, not to not pee anywhere else. And so wet, dry checks can help your child learn how to stay dry. And here's how it's done. As often as possible, so about every 5 to 15 minutes, have you or your child check if they are wet or dry. If they are dry, then they get a reinforcer, they get their reward. If they are wet, you can ignore this, or you can have them sit on the toilet to try and pee, or change them. And during these times, they do not get a reinforcement. Increase the time between checks until they are always dry. And during these dry moments, this is probably the best time to bring them to the toilet, as it suggests that that their bladder might still be full, and sitting on the toilet might allow that prompt to let them pee. A silly image of what reinforcements might make. What might be, if you use the big potty, mommy will give you an M&M and then an Elmo DVD, and then a shopping spree at Target, and then maybe a Corvette. What's Target and what's a DVD? Maybe we're talking about some Disney Plus or Walmart. Well, time for a break. I'm sure all this talk about pee might need us, might be telling us to go to the bathroom as well. But before we go, we are opening the floor to the audience. If they do have a few questions, we'll answer a handful of them before we go for our break. So you can pop them in the chat. You can raise your hand, unmute, anything is okay. We'll give about a minute just in case anybody is wanting to type their questions or still thinking about their questions. All right, nothing is coming up, so we'll have a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 6:41 just to make sure everybody has enough time, and then we'll resume. Thanks, everyone. Be back in 5 minutes.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'll give another opportunity to ask questions quickly because we are gonna move on to talking about poop. So start thinking of more questions for later too. I think somebody unmuted. If you wanted to ask a question, go for it. If not, that's okay too.
I have a question. So my son is not feeling like even he doesn't care if he's wet or dry. So I don't know. And then when I go to the when I change when I change in diaper, I put in in the toilet. I change inside, but when I'm trying to sit him, he doesn't. And he doesn't care if he dry or not. He doesn't tell you any reaction or like any sign.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so that's where we can start labeling when his clothes are wet and dry. And then each time he is dry, we can get excited and provide some reinforcement so that he can start building that understanding of, oh, this is what dry feels like, and good things happen when I am dry. Okay, at the very end, oh, we have another one. Okay, we are going to talk about bowel movements right away. So I can come back to your question if it's not answered after the end of this section, okay? Because yes, it's a tricky one. Okay, so we're going to start talking about poop now. And one of the very first slides that Ivy showed today was about getting your child checked by their doctor. And constipation is a huge factor in toilet training, especially for bowel movements. So a little bit of physiology knowledge. As our food and waste move through our intestines and bowels, water is removed and it's recirculated into our bodies. And the slower the stool moves through the intestines, the more water is removed. So the harder the stool gets. And once you have hard stool, it can be challenging to pass, and it might even feel uncomfortable or painful. So then if our kids are having painful poops, they don't want to poop, that's not fun, and they'll hold it in. And what that does is holds our stool in our intestine for longer. So even more water is taken out and it gets drier. And it's this cycle that becomes quite challenging. And it can get backed up all the way through the intestines. And the intestines will stretch to accommodate the stool inside. And that stretching can actually take a few weeks. So that's why we're such big advocates for getting to your doctor right away if your child's not having regular bowel movements. So we have a nice little chart here. And according to this Bristol scale, type 1 and 2 on the far left would indicate constipation. Types 3 and 4, those are the ideal consistency. It's soft and easy to pass. Once we get to the far right of this chart, types 5, 6, and 7, those tend towards diarrhea, and it's moving through our bodies too fast, and we don't have time to reabsorb any water from it. So right in the middle is that kind of ideal, where we're taking the right amount of water out. And so when I say, oh, your child's having regular bowel movements, that could be once every 2 days. It could also be 3 to 4 times per day. So we always come back to tracking and collecting data. There's tons of apps out there to help you track, so you don't always have to write it down on paper if that's challenging. But knowing what the patterns are and if there's a regular routine for your child is very helpful to start out. One other thing to consider is actually treating constipation before we even start bladder training. Because if it's challenging to poop and it hurts, that can create a negative experience in the bathroom. And we want the bathroom to be a pleasant and fun place to go because it brings us good things. And we know that constipation is really common with autistic kids. And it's often related to challenges with eating a variety of foods. So I think every single kid on my caseload would be characterized as a picky eater, or their parents want them to eat a few more foods. And the foods that kids tend to eat don't have a lot of fiber in them. And this adds to that cycle and that constipation. So we can talk with doctors, dietitians, and your entire team to support eating different foods to ensure that your kids are getting enough fiber in their fruits and vegetables, and then also enough water. If you're thinking, okay, that would be nice, but how do I connect with a dietitian? In Alberta, you can request a referral through your doctor. You can also call 811 and they'll help you connect with one. And then of course, you're here with the center, so an OT on your team can also support with connecting with a dietitian. The other side of the coin with constipation is exercise. So our bowels move and stool passes through with movement. So moving your whole body helps pass stool through. Specifically exercises that get your heart pumping and breathing heavy helps to move things along. And then there's also exercises like lunges and squats that build up the strength of your pelvic floor. So diet and exercise, it's always the hardest, but the simplest solution to things. Okay, so your child's having regular bowel movements. We're ready for bowel training. We actually use really the same methods as with bladder training. So I'm going to quickly review these, and then we'll have some common challenges and we'll troubleshoot those. And I think that's when that question will get answered. Okay, so the time training is when you're going to track your child's poop schedule. You're going to pay attention to when they would typically go, pay attention to the signs that they're about to poop. Sometimes this is squatting or grunting. Oftentimes it's hiding. So we're going to pay attention to when they're showing those signs. We're going to take them to the washroom about 5 to 10 minutes before that. We'll sit for 5 minutes. If they poop, amazing, let's celebrate. If they don't, that's okay. We're going to take a little break. We're going to sit back again until hopefully they poop the next time. Again, we're going to reward and praise and celebrate any poop that lands in that toilet. The other option is the self-initiations. And this, of course, is our end goal, regardless of how we start out. So this would be around the time that your child typically has a bowel movement. We're watching for those signs. And then we use the least amount of prompting to get them to go to that washroom. So this is maybe just whole gesture. I'm going to point to the washroom to remind them. It might still be bringing them to the outside of the bathroom door. It really depends on your child and where they're at. Again, reinforce, reinforce, reinforce. And then as we build up consistency in that routine, we fade out. So if they're able to walk into the bathroom on their own from the hallway, then the next time we're going to go to the end of the hallway, and then maybe only to the kitchen. And really reduce how much you're doing and increase how much they're doing. Okay, we're on to common challenges. Some kids really like their privacy to poop and they'll hide. And you're like, oh shoot, I missed them again. So this is really where it's essential to know what their routine is and what their signs are so you can catch them before they start hiding. And this might mean that we're maybe blocking in a smaller space so that we can keep track of them around that time. Once they're sitting on the toilet, we can fade ourselves out right away. If they want that privacy, we can give it to them. And then slowly desensitize them to you being there. So maybe we close the door, but we're standing right outside, and we can talk to them a little bit. And then maybe they don't require the door totally closed because we still might need to come in and help them wipe and finish up the routine. In an ideal world, we could use a preventative strategy so that our kids don't want to hide at all. So before we even start toilet training, if you're still in that phase, yay, we can reinforce pooping in general so that when your kid has a bowel movement, they're like, ooh, this is a good thing. And they're more likely to tell you that they've pooped or to poop in front of you. And it's also a really nice strategy to prevent them from holding their poop in. If it's a good thing, they'll do it. We'll repeat that often. And this is just a very accurate little image here. So the toddler's squatting and grunting, you know they're gonna poop, and then you rush them to the potty and then they're like, nope, not gonna do it. And if you had your cameras on, I'm certain some of you would be nodding along with me. Okay, so some kids will hold it and hold it and hold it until you get that diaper on, and then they're like, yep, that's when I'm gonna poop. So we can start shaping this into a behavior that we want. So we can bring them into the bathroom, give them their diaper, and they can poop in their diaper. That's one step closer to the goal. Then we can have them sit while wearing their diaper on the toilet, and they can poop in their diaper sitting. It's a little bit closer to the ideal. And then we can do some tricky little things to fade out that diaper. A lot of times we'll recommend cutting a hole in it so that kids feel that same comfort and sensation of the diaper, but their poop is actually going to go into the toilet and we can celebrate. And we're going to celebrate each of these stages as we go along.
I'm seeing a few questions in the chat. Do you feel like this is a good time to answer those, Kelsey?
Sure.
Okay, you want to read them out too?
Okay, so I will just readdress the one that I said I would answer in here. So it says, hi, my son knows how to pee in the big toilet, but doesn't know how to poop in the toilet. He's always pooping in his underwear. So this can be addressed in a couple different ways that I've mentioned. So we can show that poop goes in the toilet. So when we're cleaning up, we can even scoop it right out of that underwear. We're putting it in the toilet. We say, oh, poop goes in the toilet.
Being that and having those verbally neutral tones to poop. So letting them know, and this might address that second question as well, where my child only goes poop in the in the bedroom and closes the door. This might be the idea that kiddo might have maybe a negative experience with the bathroom. And so having a neutral tone around poop and the bathroom, or making it positive, as we have always as something that we have reiterated throughout this presentation. Reinforce. Some reasons for hiding. So to maybe relieve that negative, that hiding, is to say, oh, you pooped. Pooping is normal. Mom, daddy poops. Everybody poops, right? So I know in some cases, some parents might say, oh, yucky poop, it's stinky, it's smelly. And that might turn the child away from pooping, and they're like, oh, you're right, it is kind of stinky. I don't want to show it off, or who wants to show off their poop? But we want to make it a neutral experience where they are willing to be in the space of their parents to allow for that that bowel movement to happen without hiding. I hope it helps answer that question a little bit. I know it's not the answer to everything, but something to start off with.
Yeah.
Alrighty, next slide.
Okay, so what if my child is holding their bowel movements? So this goes back to that cycle of constipation that I've mentioned. So regardless of the reason that they started holding, maybe they didn't get the privacy they wanted, there wasn't a good quiet place to try, they don't like the bathroom, they start holding, and then stool hardens and it becomes more uncomfortable to pass the stool, and then that's painful, so we hold some more, it's spending more time in our bodies, that water is being removed, and it's even harder. So to break this cycle, we want to address it as soon as possible. That's where we go to our doctor right away. And we want to stack the deck in the favor of our kids. So we want pooping in the toilet to be as easy as possible. So let's make it as easy as possible. If at the beginning, that's pooping in the diaper in the bathroom, and then we progress to the toilet, that's what we do. We're meeting our kids where they're at, and we're reinforcing the successes that they do have so that they're comfortable to poop again. If you get to a point where your child is holding completely, we're going to want to pause the toilet training until we're consistently regular again. One of the strategies that doctors will recommend is using a laxative, and they're very effective quickly. So one of the other challenges with this, though, is if you're constipated, you use a laxative, you experience relief, and then you stop using the laxative, right away they're still constipated. So we want to make a plan that's not necessarily long-term, but long enough term that we're getting that really regular cycle, and we have either the diet and exercise or medications to support that long-term.
Okay, so we've completed toilet training during the day. How about at nighttime? Kiddo might still be bedwetting. Right here, we have some statistics showing the likelihood for bedwetting in that age group. And this data is from 2013. There might be some outdated numbers. We'll hopefully change those numbers up eventually. Not eventually, hopefully soon. Some reasons for nighttime continence might be because kiddo is a deep sleeper, if they're on medications, genetics, their bladder size. So if that's a reduced bladder size, an overactive bladder size, or an overactive bladder. Maybe hormones are playing a role, or if they are taking in caffeine to some extent. So when we really want to emphasize that when it comes to nighttime training, it's important to understand that bedwetting is not the child's fault, and they have limited control over that nighttime wetting, unfortunately, just because of they are asleep, right? And so nighttime training, the idea to limit that bedwetting is to still continue to provide your child with a typical amount of fluid during the day, and then establishing a bedtime routine and restricting fluids. Limiting fluid intake for about 2 hours before bedtime, maybe, or even having small sips. But what we would recommend is limiting, if not all, restricting the fluid intake 2 hours before. Then taking your child to the bathroom just before they go to bed. So this ensures that they have emptied their bladder and bowels. So if bedwetting continues, one method to target this is called the wake up method. In this method, the idea is to take them to the bathroom, continue to take them to the bathroom just before bed, but then waking them up 2 hours into sleep after they have been put to bed. And so this gives, and bringing them to the bathroom. So you might be waking them once, you might be waking them up twice throughout the night to give that opportunity to go to the bathroom. And then again, providing that reinforcement if the bed is dry or your child is dry, and the child voids in the toilet. And so if the bed is dry all night, the child earns a big, big reward when they wake up. And so you can add or eliminate the wakings. So you may gradually, you might start off with waking up kiddo twice a night. Maybe we'll pull back to one. And then, as always, gradually fade out that reinforcement to ensure that kiddo is not fully relying on that reinforcement carrying on into the future, right? Other methods are bed alarms. And so these alarms are devices that detect moisture before an accident may occur. And if moisture is detected, a bell or buzz may go off to wake your child up to let them bring themselves to the bathroom. And so some of these devices are hooked up to their underwear, or they are mats that are placed under your child in their bed to sleep
on. Okay, so we are nearing the end of our workshop, and this is where we get into those nitty-gritty challenges and try to troubleshoot with you. So we will go through a couple different scenarios, and then at the end, we'll be opening it up again to questions. So this first common challenge, what if my child refuses to sit on the toilet? This is where we need to start very small and work our way up. So begin by reinforcing when your kid just sits for 1 second. And then we're gonna do that a few times until they're comfortable. And then we're gonna increase that to 2 seconds. This is where those motivators come in really handy. We wanna make it fun so that we do it again. And it's not something that they dread practicing with you. The other key is to be super consistent and persistent. Every day, multiple times a day, so that they know, okay, this is the routine, this is what's expected of me. Yay, I can do it. Start small and reinforce all of their attempts and successes. Okay, what if my child will only go at home? This is something we commonly see, and it makes sense because there's a lot more controllable factors at home. When kids start to use public washrooms at the school or in the community, um, the routine might be a little bit different. There's noises that you can't predict. The toilets flush loudly. The hair dryers are very loud. So those elements, you can work with your team OT to really find strategies to support your child for those things. The tips for right now would be to increase your child's opportunities to practice. So have them drink so much at school so that they have to pee so that we can practice. The other thing would be to try to make the routine as similar as possible. If you're using a visual at home to say, okay, it's time to go to the bathroom, let's use that visual at school too. If there are specific times at home on the weekends that you'll take your child to the bathroom, let's try to set those up similarly at school. So if we always go to the bathroom right after snack, let's try to do that at school too.
Okay, I started self-initiation training and my child started having more accidents. So this is expected. However, if there is a dramatic increase in the accidents, what might have happened was that reinforcements may have been faded too quickly. And so what this might suggest is that your child may not have made that association that bringing myself to the bathroom leads to good things. And so if this happens, take a step back, recuperate, and reintroduce the reinforcement when your child brings themselves to the bathroom. Sometimes changing up the reinforcer can help as well. If we use the same reinforcer, sometimes kiddos get a little bored with them and they lose interest, right? Kids are just looking at everything. So changing that up might be good. And then also, as always, check with your physician for possible UTIs or any underlying medical conditions as well.
I just want to say there was a really great question in the chat, but I'm going to get through the rest of the troubleshooting slides and then we'll come back to it. Okay, what if my child was bladder trained and has started to have accidents again? So that means they were doing really well and now suddenly they're having accidents again. And this could be for a couple different reasons. One might be that you moved too fast or faded reinforcement too quickly. And what we mean by that is we've increased the expectation before your child was ready and consistently able to succeed without your support. So maybe that was we were taking our kid to the toilet once every 45 minutes. And then we jumped up to every hour. And now we're kind of seeing quite a few more accidents. What we're going to do is we're going to back up the expectation. If it was time related, if it was self-initiations, back up a step until they're having success again. And then we're going to try to increase the expectation, but not quite as much as we did the last time. Find a little bit of an in-between. The other piece is, are they still motivated to be doing this? Are they getting enough of a reward? It doesn't necessarily have to be that tangible toy or treat. Maybe it's just our praise, and that's part of fading out the reinforcement. But we need to be careful to not fade too quickly because then it's not worth it for them anymore. So finding that just right balance of can they do it Are they having success, and are they still motivated to do that?
All right, my child will only poop in a squatting position. If your child is only pooping in that squat position, that's actually pretty natural for them. When we squat on the toilet or when we're in that squatting position, this naturally relaxes the sphincter, which is that is a fancy word for our bum hole. And so this allows that relaxation for a comfortable poop. As we can see in this image, it I don't know if I can, my mouse will show, but in that sitting versus that squatting image, we can see when we sit and our legs are on the might be on the floor, that there is a quite a smaller angle, and that creates more stress on that sphincter, and then it's not as relaxed and not as natural or comfortable to actually poop. When we have that squatting position, it relaxes everything and it allows for our poop to flow more easily. And so to allow for this is to have a higher or raised stool when your child is on the toilet to allow for that angle. One of the great advertisements for that stool is called the Squatty Potty. It wraps around the toilet so that it's not in the way when we go to the toilet, and it has a nice foot positions for your feet.
Okay, so I'll wrap up with some take-home messages and then we'll answer all sorts of questions. So toilet training is so much harder than you think it is. It's harder on you than it is on your child. There's a lot to be thinking about and managing at once. Toilet training is about your child understanding what they need to do. If they don't know what our expectations are or what that routine looks like, they're not going to be successful. And that's why so much repetition and gradually increasing the expectation is so vital. Toilet training can take a very long time. Don't give up just because it doesn't seem to be working. We really want that persistence and consistency. And as always, the strategies that we explained today sound very simple. They're not easy, and there are complexities with every child. So talk with your OT on your team, and they can give you more specific, tailored recommendations for your child and your situation.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Kelsey, for wrapping that up. We'll open the floor to the questions, and actually we'll answer that one question in the chat. I believe it was about wiping. Hey?
Yes. How do I teach my child to wipe his bum? So I jotted down a few thoughts for this. The first approach would be starting with a physical prompt. So using hand over hand to really teach that motor skill of the wiping motion. And then gradually fading out your support so that your kid is doing more of the motion. The other piece to this could be something called chaining, which I talked about right at the beginning. And that's where you complete all of the steps of wiping except for like the very first one. We have backwards chaining and forwards chaining. So the reason I hesitated was because your child could do the very first step and then you do the rest. Or you could do all of them and then your child do the last step. And then we gradually add how many steps our kids are doing. So that's where I talk about having your kid count out the number of toilet paper squares they need and then you'll rip, wipe, and put it in the toilet. Then maybe a few times later, once that counting out is very easy for them, they'll count them out and rip it and then pass it to you. And then we keep adding the number of steps that your kiddo does. There's also another piece to wiping. And it's that decision-making process and being able to tell if something is clean or dirty. So when we wipe, we don't just wipe once and flush. We wipe until we're clean. So practicing wiping, looking, oh, it's dirty. That means we wipe again until we wipe and it's clean. And then we know, okay, I'm clean. We can flush and move on. So like every skill, there are so many different elements that you have to consider, and breaking it down so that we're working on one thing at a time so that your child has success with it and we can celebrate that success so that they get confident and excited to try more. Okay, I think that answers the wiping question.
We have one more question. We have, or a few more. We've got, any words of encouragement for those of us trying to tackle potty training with older kiddos? My kiddo is 7 years old and I worry it'll be harder for him because he's so used to diapers for so long. And so for sure that consistency and that persistent, is persistency a word? That is key for sure. Giving those opportunities to be in the underwear, being in the diaper, having that opportunity to sit on the toilet is always encouraged. I think we just have to meet our kiddos where they're at and understand what their baseline is so that we can really start in small steps. If they're always pooping in their diaper, just making sure that they're pooping in the bathroom in the diaper, and then maybe they're sitting on the toilet with that diaper, gradually working towards that. Or the other strategy that Kelsey had mentioned is maybe cutting a hole in the diaper to have them have that opportunity to feel that accident. So having that awareness as well, developing that.
I'd
Don't
also
give up
like to,
is what I can say.
I'd also like to add that your kiddo's age is just a number, and when they're ready, they're ready. And if they weren't ready before, that's okay. Maybe they're ready now. And everybody has the capacity to learn. It might take a little bit longer, or it might be really fast for some kids, but everybody has the capacity to learn. So just find that motivation with you and your child, and we can progress to underwear and toilet training.
So does slow development affect toilet training? I think Kelsey actually answered that one, that every child is different. We try to meet them where they're at, always. So making sure that we're not putting too high of an expectation on them, or making too many demands for them, making sure that wherever they're at, we modify how we approach the training to meet them where they're at. So if for example, that one where if they have a total fear of the bathroom, just standing in the bathroom and rewarding that, maybe standing in the bathroom for 10 seconds and rewarding that, touching the toilet seat for a second, gradually increasing that to 10, 15, whatever you feel is appropriate for your child, and making sure that you communicate with your OT about that as well, right? So making sure that they are there to help support you to create a plan, and how we can go about that, I think, is absolutely important. So age is just a number, as Kelsey had mentioned, and we're going to try and meet our kiddos where they're at.
how do you start a child toilet training if he's not ready for toilet training and he's not understanding how to use the toilet? Yeah, so we're going to teach what the routine looks like. A lot of exposure and modeling. There are a couple slides dedicated to these pre-toileting skills. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to send out these slides to you. We just have to double check the rules on that. But maybe, Ivy, we could just like scroll back up to
Sure.
pre-toileting skills.
I try my best
I
to get
think
there. It might be a little slow.
slide 9 and 10.
Okay.
So that's
gonna be-
just exposing them to the bathroom and the routine. We're going to do diaper changes in the bathroom. We're going to read stories about sitting on the toilet. Some kids aren't interested in stories, so maybe they'll watch a video. Sing songs about sitting on the toilet. And we can start labeling, oh, you're wet, you're dry. Showing them that the poop from their diaper can be flushed down the toilet, and start to just like expose and reinforce what the purpose of the toilet is.
and modeling it, having your child see you or dad, siblings, sit on the toilet, peeing in the toilet, pooping in the toilet. And if sibling is close in age, if your kiddo sees sibling pee in the toilet, giving them a reward for that as well, so that they have that model piece and that visual, very strong visual of, oh, if I pee in the toilet, I get good things. Alrighty, so it looks like there are no more questions in the chat. If that's it for everybody, then we would like to thank you all for coming to our toileting workshop. We are so happy that you came, took that time out of your evening to come, and that we're gonna cross our fingers that we can send the PDF out, a PDF version of this PowerPoint out to the families who attended. And just thank you. And so that's it from us. Everybody have a lovely evening now. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.